Hello everyone, welcome to Overwatch, and today we're starting a new trend in this channel. That is the tier list. Yes, we're starting to do some tier lists for pop culture content. Today we're going to start by video games. I found this list with 100 plus games and I decided, yeah, I'm going to start with this list. It's a fun way to rank your content, the content that you watch, to have more like an idea of your opinions on some of these issues. And yeah, in this particular list we have not tried the game yet. Horrible, really bad, bad, decent, good, very good, great, amazing, and masterpiece. Now a couple of rules that I'm going to establish here. First of all, I already put the ones that I did not play in the list. Now we're not going to go over them. A lot of them are old Nintendo games, some sequels of games that I did not enjoy that much, other games that I actually own but I have not had the opportunity to play, and for example Soul games that I don't actually am interested in, but we're going to jump those over, of course, because I have not played them, so I cannot rank them. Now the ranking that I'm going to give each game is the ranking that I would give them when they came out, so not affected by either they hold up really well with time or anything. It's just when they came out, this was the ranking that I would put them. And some of these games, because I'm still playing them, I may change later on. I may revisit this video and update them according to the value that I think after I finish them. I think I have a good idea of some of these rankings. And by the way, some of them, of course, are not just my opinion, because I'm going to take into account also the critic opinion and opinion of other people, but that doesn't mean that it's going to supplant my opinion, because this is of course my list, so there will be controversial opinions in this list. But let's start, and we are going to start with Bioshock. I have a pity that this list only has the first Bioshock. I think the first one is amazing. I would put Infinite a little bit above as masterpiece. The reason why I rank Bioshock, the original one, a little bit lower is because I think the story, even though it's a really good story, could have been better told. I think there's few story there. I think there's the way that the story is told is actually well done, but could have been a little bit better. So it's missing just a little kick to the masterpiece category. Now Half-Life, the original Half-Life, so not Half-Life 2, I think it is a decent game. And the reason why I think it's a decent game is because when I played it, I thought it was a really boring game. It just didn't have anything special that it would stand out. So a lot of people now think of this game, I think, better because of Half-Life 2. I think Half-Life 2 kind of made Half-Life 1 a bit overrated over time. But again, that's my opinion. Street Fighter 2, it is one of the best beat-em-up games of all time, and it's a masterpiece. And it's a masterpiece because it was almost perfectly balanced, and it was a game that even today you can go to tournaments and play Street Fighter 2 professionally. It is definitely a game that without it we wouldn't have a lot of the amazing beat-em-ups that we have now. So it was a revolution at the time. Team Fortress 2 is a good game. Now, it was one of the most fun multiplayer games, I think, of all time. And the fact that it became free made it really popular, but unfortunately got kind of deleted almost from history because of all the modern ones. And even though I think in some ways it's better than a lot of the multiplayer games that now are so popular, but for now I think I'm putting it as the good category because I think it could have been updated more and just improved more over time, and I don't think it was, and that's sad in a way. Now Until Dawn, I'm going to put it as amazing. Now it is, in my opinion, one of the best horror games of all time. I think that style of quick time events is perfect for the horror genre, and I think it's really sad that the Dark Picture Anthology games that are coming out from the same studio are not living up to the legacy of Until Dawn. They are decent games, but they are not being as mysterious and as deep as Until Dawn was. Until Dawn was a game that for a long time put you on the edge of your seat, with the mystery. Yeah, they're like a really good mystery that you try to understand. And these later games, the Dark Picture Anthology, are being a little too easy to figure out what's going on, and that's sad. Now Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 for me is a very good game. Very good game. Here's the problem. I think Uncharted 4 is, in my opinion, an update in terms of gameplay and graphics, but the story got a downgrade. You could see that Amy was no longer part of the team, and that a lot of things that she had already written for Uncharted 4 were rewritten by Neil Druckmann, and I don't like Neil Druckmann. I think Neil Druckmann is unfortunately a really bad writer, and you can see that The Last of Us Part 1 was heavily worked on by other people to correct the stuff that he put in the game, even though he was the creator of The Last of Us. The Last of Us was good besides Neil Druckmann, it was not because of Neil Druckmann. And unfortunately, Uncharted 4, you can see some of those downgrades in terms of story. It is still an amazing game. I loved it. It's very good, but it's not as good as the other ones. Now we have Yakuza Kiwami 2, and that's a masterpiece, an easy masterpiece. I love the Yakuza games. The Yakuza games for me are some of the best open world games ever made, because they kind of run away from those problems that open world games have. A lot of criticism that you're going to see in a lot of these games that I'm going to show in the list in terms of open world games are going to be the same. Repetitiveness, a lot of empty content, a lot of useless content, a lot of maps that are really big but don't have anything for you to do in. And the Yakuza games are the opposite. The map is small, but you have an amazing story, focused story that you can go and just do the story, and then you have all of this side content that actually is worth doing, with great mini games, with great side stories, and it's something that you don't find in many open world games. And Yakuza 2 is like almost maybe the best Yakuza game of all time. They have the new engine, the Dragon engine, that is amazing. The gameplay is so well done, especially if you play it in PC where you can get 60 frames per second. It's such an amazing, because the original for the PlayStation is 30 frames per second. You feel a little bit slower, especially if you come from Yakuza 0, but then in the PC you just unlock that frame rate. It just becomes fantastic. The storyline is probably the best in the Yakuza series. It is a masterpiece. That's clearly for me. And if you haven't given the Yakuza series a go, you should try it. Now, Battlefield 1 is a shooter that would put in the generic shooter that every one of them is the same, and it is decent. It's popcorn material. It is like the popcorn flicks of video games, like Call of Duty, Battlefield. All of those games are those empty action movies that you play, you have fun, but they are not really that good, but you still have fun. And all of them are going to be put in the decent category. So I'm not going to justify that further than this, because all of them feel the same to me. Battlefield, Call of Duty, all of those games feel the same to me. The story is like always looks the same, feels the same. It's an excuse for multiplayer shooters, and they all feel the same. Now then we have Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and that's a great game. It was a really fun game at the time, and even though I was not good at it, I always had fun while playing it. It was a fun game. Like, I played it in the Dreamcast, and it was fun. The soundtrack was amazing. It is a great game. I'm hoping to get the HD remasters that came out not too long ago soon, because I really want to have fun with this game. Then we have Red Dead Redemption 2, and here's another controversial opinion. Oh, come on. There you go. It's a very good game. I'm going to put it in the very good game category. Now, I haven't finished it yet. I find it extremely boring. Like, technically is amazing. It is graphically really well made, good looking, a lot of detail. There's a lot of good dialogue, there's a lot of good motion capture, all of those checks, but it doesn't check a check mark that for me is very important, that is the fun check mark. I don't find this game fun. I find exactly all of those problems of open world games. Red Dead Redemption has them, like boring side quests, boring side content, just boring everything, and a lot of walking, a lot of riding a horse and doing nothing and just characters talking. I find that extremely boring to me. It's not fun, it's not really what I expect from a video game, and that's why it's only very good. Now Sonic Mania, I find it good. Here's the thing, at the time the Sonic games were really great when they came out, and Mega Drive and all of those consoles, great work. Then we had an evolution with Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, that in my opinion are still the best Sonic games of all time. Now, because they couldn't do those games again, they couldn't find a way to make 3D Sonic work again, they did Sonic Mania that feels exactly like those old 2D Sonic games. But while I would rank those games higher because of the time they came out, I cannot rank Sonic Mania higher because it came out not too long ago, and it just doesn't feel correct. It just doesn't feel as good now as it did back then. So yeah, I think they are good, they're competent games, they're fun to play, but I cannot rank them higher because again, they feel too old for me in this generation. Now Batman Arkham City. Oh Jesus Christ, why the hell is my computer acting up? There you go, I can grab it again, and it's a great game. And the reason why I'm not putting in amazing, because Arkham Asylum, I felt like it was an amazing game, almost a masterpiece, but for now just amazing. But Arkham City actually felt like it was a downgrade, and the reason why I felt it was a downgrade is because it tried to do a little bit of the open world bullshit. Just put in like this empty city where you have to traverse and just waste time, and it feels empty, boring again. Like Arkham Asylum focused the asylum. You go there, you go through that place, something happens. You go to that place, something happens. Now you have to navigate and find your way, and that's boring as hell, and I hate it. Everything has to be open world. It is boring. Stop it, please. So that for me made the game, even though the game has a lot of good content, a lot of great villains, a great story, great gameplay, but it still did this boring and necessary traversal, you know, open world game, and we need to stop this. This is ruining video games. Then we have another Call of Duty that is going to under decent category because of the reasons I already mentioned. Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2, actually, I'm not going to rank it. I put it here, I played a little bit of it, but I gave up because I got spoiled from Mass Effect 3 that I also own. But I don't feel like I played enough to actually rank it, so gotta be honest, cannot rank it. Now Watch Dogs, I felt like it was a decent game. Again, all of those problems of open world games is in Watch Dogs just get amplified to a lot, like a huge degree. Now I played it on the PC at the time because I wanted to use graphical mods to make it look as close as possible to that amazing trailer, but then the gameplay and the game was so boring for me, just didn't work. Now Uncharted 3, I have to put it one tier above Uncharted 4 because in my opinion, again, the story is a little bit better done in Uncharted 3 than in Uncharted 4. It was a lot more consistent, even though again Uncharted 4 has better gameplay and better graphics, but it was a generational leap. So because the story of Uncharted 3 is a little bit better, I put it in the great category. Now Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. It is an amazing game. It could have been a masterpiece if they had given it more time to be made, because unfortunately they had a lot of problems in terms of development, and that limited a little bit of what Platinum Games was able to do with this game. The game needed a little bit more story and just remove the bad stealth sections or just replace them with better ones, but it was still one of the best action games of all time. Then Metal Gear Solid 5, it is a masterpiece. It is an incomplete masterpiece, but it's still a masterpiece. I know that it was not finished. You can see that the second chapter is a little bit bare bones and we have content that is missing, and that's really sad. But when you look at the gameplay, you look at the story, you look at the graphics, everything in this game is a masterpiece. It is one of the games that have more hours clocked in Steam for a reason. It just feels so good to play that you cannot stop playing it. It is a masterpiece, even though it is an unfinished masterpiece, and we all know it. Now, Shadow of the Colossus is a good game in my opinion. Now, I did not finish it because the ending again got spoiled for me, but in a part it is the ending that also stops for going a little bit above, because the ending just feels like a punch in the gut that is not deserved. I feel like it is such a depressing game that it's hard for me to give it a higher ranking, but it's still a good game. Don't get me wrong. I understand why people love it, but it's just not for me. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, it's a decent game. I cannot give it more than that. The Assassin's Creed 1, and maybe like 1 I could put like in great or amazing. Assassin's Creed 2 I would give it like very good, but I think it always went down with Assassin's Creed games because they didn't know what they were doing. They were just putting more and more and more. They didn't give it time to breathe, and they started ruining the story, and now it doesn't even deserve the title of Assassin's Creed. It makes no sense. GTA 4 is going in the great category. Now, it's going in the great category because it had a great story. I loved the way they put like the realistic driving in the games. Now, the graphics were not that great when I look back at it. It had a little of the defects of that generation where everything was a lot grayed out and really dark. I love the characters, some of the best characters in the series, but it still had a lot of the defects of the open world games, of just really boring side content, and there was barely any checkpoints in these huge missions. It just became a little bit frustrating at times. So yeah, it's great. I can put it in the great category. Now, Metal Gear Solid 3 is also a masterpiece. It is probably the best Metal Gear Solid in the series. One of the most amazing stories because it's a prequel. It's great for newcomers, and gameplay was really fun, really well balanced. Graphics were amazing at the time. There was nothing that I can point out that is bad about this game. Just perfection. One of the best games of that generation. Then we have Doom. Doom is also a little bit of popcorn shooter, but it's a really fun popcorn shooter, so it's going in the very good category. It doesn't barely have any story, but it's just fun, just arcade fun. Now, Final Fantasy 15, I'm going to put for now in the good category. I have not played enough of it, but I felt like something is weird about it. Now, first of all, I think these games actually would benefit from gameplay like Devil May Cry. I'm sorry, I know they are supposed to be RPGs, but they are right now action RPGs, and I actually feel like if they dropped RPG and go full action, they would just improve a lot. And then the story starts and I have no idea what's going on with the story. Now, I do have an idea, but because I actually watched the Kingslave movie, because without that Kingslave movie I would have no idea what's going on, because they just jump into the story without much information. It just looks a little bit of a mess for now, but maybe I'll change my mind once I finish the game. Then we have Need for Speed. Need for Speed for me is a little bit like Call of Duty. It is the popcorn plastic food of racing games, except for Underground. Underground was actually really good. Otherwise, Need for Speed is for me, it's silly fun, but not really that great. Devil May Cry 5 is the best hack-and-slash action game of all time, so it's a masterpiece. It is everything that Devil May Cry should be. It has the best story of all the Devil May Cry games, 3 amazing, well-balanced main characters, great graphics, great gameplay, everything is just perfection. It is impossible to do almost action games better than Devil May Cry 5. So yeah. Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 6, I'm going to put it in the very good category. This is one of the best beat 'em up games of all time. It is a series that unfortunately should be more popular than it is, but it's still a great series. Mortal Kombat 11, I'm going to rank a little bit below Soul Calibur 6, so in the good category. One of the reasons is the gameplay for me is not as good as Soul Calibur, not as balanced, and I really didn't like what they did with the female characters and with the clothing things. I think was hypocritical, because the main guy characters, a lot of them are still shirtless, but girls had to get uniforms, less reveal and less sexy. And I feel like a game that is based on so much violence, now they care about characters' clothing being too sexy. It just makes no sense. It is stupid, and it's just PC culture. Another Call of Duty game, another one for the decent category. Then we have the Doom. This Doom should go a little bit above the new Doom, because in the time it was a revolution, so it deserves a little bit more credit. I would say that Duke Nukem 3D would get a little bit above Doom, because I think it was a better game. But yeah. Now Half-Life 2, another controversial one that I'm going to put in the good category. And the reason I'm going to put it in the good category is I bought it at the time because of Counter-Strike, and I tried it, and I thought it was a little bit boring. I know that it was a revolution, I know that the graphics were amazing at the time, and a lot of the nuances in terms of AI and physics were amazing, but the game itself felt boring to me. The story felt boring to me, the main character felt boring to me, the world felt boring to me, so I cannot give it more than that. Sorry, but that's my take. League of Legends is horrible. I'm sorry, but I cannot even understand why people like this game. This is just my opinion. I felt it was probably one of the worst games that I've ever played, ever. So yeah, I have nothing to say about it. I just feel like the type of game itself, not just this game, the type of game itself is just terrible. Now Overwatch, I think it's a great game. It's one of the best multiplayer games that I've played lately. It should be a little bit balanced, but I like that they have continuously worked on it to improve, and that especially without charging you anything extra, so that I have to give them credit for. So yeah, it's a really nice game. God of War 3 is a very good game. I think it's a very good game. I felt like the time God of War games were a little bit overrated. Like, if we compare Devil May Cry games to the God of War games, Devil May Cry games are definitely better than the God of War games, but the God of War games have a type of story that appeals more to the masses, because it's more Western instead of more anime like Devil May Cry, so it gets people more interested, that most of them are still not anime fans, even though, again, Devil May Cry is better at almost everything. Now, God of War story is a little bit better written, but that's not a big issue. Now we have Devil May Cry Fighter Z. Fighter Z is getting in the very good category too. Now I put it here because even though it's from the same team as Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, those two games are better than Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Dragon Ball Fighter Z is a little bit more casual, and it's made to be more casual, especially because it's a Dragon Ball property, so it's not as well done as Guilty Gear or BlazBlue. So because I would put those games higher, I have to put Dragon Ball Z here. Now Far Cry 3, I felt like it was a decent game. Again, I felt like a little bit of a plastic food shooter. Now FIFA 20 is going in the bad category, and the reason it's going in the bad category is not because it has bad gameplay or bad graphics, or it's just because it is paid to win. It's a fact. If you want to enjoy FIFA, you have to spend tons of money, and that's not fun. Then that's not a good practice. So pick bad or really bad, it should be in one of the really bad. I'm going to put in really bad because I think it's such a disgusting practice that is going in the really bad one. Now Tetris is going in it's going in a decent category. It was fun at the time, but it was such a basic game. At the time I also felt like it was, yeah, it's okay, it's Tetris, it's nothing special. Now Fortnite is going in the horrible category too. I do understand. It's one of the basic shooters that is just using kids' lack of maturity to be popular, because it is a bad shooter. It has bad mechanics, but it has the cartoony style that appeals to kids, and that is what it is. It's just a bad game made to low IQ players. It is my opinion, and I stick with it. Now, God of War. God of War is going in the great category. Here's the thing why it's going in the great category. Amazing graphics. The gameplay, even though it's a downgrade from God of War 3, still decent enough. Has a good story, great voice acting, but it again falls in the trap of the open world game with a lot of repetition, a lot of walk and talk, a lot of telling you the story instead of showing you the story that a lot of these open world games do, and it's just a bad mechanic that just bores the hell out of me. Again, I hope that the sequel corrects some of this, gives us more variety of enemies, less walk and talk, more show, more cutscenes, more actually story being shown to us instead of telling us this amazing lore from the past that we never get to see, and that just frustrated me during this game, so I cannot give it more than great. Then GTA 5. So I put GTA 4 in the great, so I'm going to put GTA 5 in the amazing one. A lot of the problems that I had with GTA 4, they managed to correct with GTA 5, even though it is not a masterpiece for me because it still has some of those open world problems. Now a lot of it was corrected. You don't need to do so much side content. You do have checkpoints during missions. You have 3 main characters and you switch between them, and you have less of the driving constantly from place to place. It's a little bit better balanced than GTA 4, even though I think Nico Bellic is a better main character than all of the 3 main characters of GTA 5. Horizon Zero Dawn gets my masterpiece. It is, even though it tries to be an open world game, it's such a unique setup and story, and you do have ways to fast travel through the world, so it's not that boring, and it just feels like a world so alive. It's just really well done, and it doesn't hit so many of the traps that the open world games have. Speaking of masterpiece, yes, Yakuza 0 is also a masterpiece, even though it does not have the great graphic engine of the Yakuza Kiwami 2. We don't care because the story is so good, and it is the story that made Yakuza games more popular than ever, because it was a prequel from the first game, and it's such a perfect prequel. That's how a prequel it's done, because it's a story that fits so well with the story of the entire franchise without being completely necessary. Just it created so many new amazing characters, even though those characters have to basically disappear because they are not in the forward games, and they all fit so well in the world. It's so hard to write a game this well as Yakuza 0 did, and then the open world is the best that it's ever been in a Yakuza series. 2 cities, both of them feel great, all of the side content feels great, all of the mini games, just the most packed game in the series, and you don't feel like it's padding. You don't feel like it's just filler. No, everything feels great and feels like it's worth it to do. That's how an open world should be. Now we have Counter-Strike, and I would say Counter-Strike games are good. I don't say they would be great. They feel unbalanced a lot of the time, but they're still fun enough that they're still popular and played in the competitive scene, even though they're so unbalanced. Now we have Pac-Man, and Pac-Man, it's a good game. It's a good game, fun game, old style. Pong, it's a decent game, come on, it's just Pong. Then we have Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2, it's a great game. I would say it's a great game. It is a remake, it's a well done remake, but it's still a remake. It's still just trying to live up to another game of the series that was well done. Now it is really well done, great graphics, but I think great, it's a good ranking for it. Now Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece. It's a game that revolutionized the series and shooters on the whole. It was a game so influent, and it was sometimes in a bad way, because unfortunately the next Resident Evils became poorer because of it, because they tried to do more action and more action, while Resident Evil 4 managed a balance between the action and the horror. All the other ones after that until 7 couldn't manage to balance well, but 4 did it in such a great way that it was a revolution at the time. Now Skyrim, I tried it. I think it's a decent game. I cannot rank it any higher. I thought it was boring as hell, so sorry about that. The Last of Us Part 1, it is a masterpiece. It's one of the best games that I've ever played. Top 5 best games I've ever played. Graphics, story, everything was so well done, balanced, some of the most realistic characters ever in a video game. It's such a pity that they did a sequel to it, because it did not need a sequel. It was a perfect game as it was, and for a lot of people probably we will ignore that it had a sequel at all. Uncharted 2 is also a masterpiece. It is the best of the Uncharted series by far. It is probably one of the best action-adventure games ever made. It is such an amazing title that a lot of games tried to copy it, like Tomb Raider did after it came out. A lot of games now try to be Uncharted-like, because Uncharted was the perfect summer blockbuster video game. It was the perfection of that formula, and I don't think the series has ever lived up to the Uncharted 2 level again, and that's sad. But again, when you go that high, it actually is really hard to follow up. We have The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 is also a masterpiece that I took a long time to play, because I didn't know I was going to like it. When I saw images of The Witcher, I thought I was not going to like it because it looked too medieval, and I don't really like medieval style games, and it was a little bit too open worldy. But then I watched the series, the show, the TV show, and I decided, okay, I want a little bit more content from this, and it was a great sale, and I bought it, played it, and suddenly, wow, this open world is actually not empty, and the side content actually is good. The missions feel different and feel like part of this living world, and even though the map is so huge, I don't feel like it's boring traveling between it, and I can fast forward and fast travel between the map, and the story is so well told. And the more I played, I was just getting more into it. Then I finished the game and I got to the DLCs, and the DLCs were even better than the main story, and I was like blown away. Yes, The Witcher 3 is definitely a masterpiece. I haven't played 1 or 2, and I want to play them, but it's so hard to play them now because I played 3, and 3 is such a masterpiece. Now Yakuza 4, it is either great or amazing. I'm going to put it in the great category, because Yakuza 4, even though they tried doing something to revitalize the series at this time, because Yakuza 3 was not as good as it could have been. You know, a lot of people was feeling like Kazuma Kiryu carrying the series alone was getting old, and it was hard to tell a great story with just this character that is trying to get away from the Yakuza life, and they just keep pulling him in. So they decided to give us 4 main characters, including of course Kazuma Kiryu, but Kazuma Kiryu would be just like a character that was pulled in by the end of it and just focused more on the other characters, and it was a good idea, but I don't think they did it as well as they could have had in this game with just one city for all of these characters just still didn't feel quite right. It was still a great character, great story, great gameplay, but it just didn't feel as high as Yakuza 0 or Yakuza Kiwami 2, of course. Speaking of, then we have Yakuza Kiwami 1. That is an amazing game. It is a remake of the first one, and even though it uses a lot and reuses a lot of the assets of Yakuza 0, it is still Yakuza 1, and Yakuza 1 has one of the best stories of the series. So it's not a masterpiece because again it's reusing a lot of assets from Yakuza 0 to remake Yakuza 1, but because it's still Yakuza 1 story, it doesn't have as much content as Yakuza 0, but again, one of the best stories in the series. It is an amazing game, worth it every moment. Even if you've played Yakuza 0 not too long ago, you'll feel right at home, and it just feels like you continue to play Yakuza 0, but of course with this amazing story that started the entire series. For Honor, I feel like it was a decent game, nothing special. Jedi Fallen Order, I'm still playing it, and let's take it, and I would say for now it's a very good game, probably the best Star Wars game that I've ever played. Feels amazing to play, but let's see how it goes. Maybe later on it will be ranked a little bit higher. For now I think it's a very good game. Outlast, I felt it was a bad game. I'm sorry, I just didn't care for it. I felt boring as hell. It was scary, but it was not fun. I like scary games, but scary games have to be fun. Speaking of scary games that are fun, Resident Evil 7. It's an amazing game. I would almost put it as a masterpiece, but the reason I don't put it as a masterpiece is because the second part of the game is a little bit too repetitive. The enemies in the beginning are amazing, really great horror game, great environments, but then the molded just become too boring near the end because it's just too repetitive and it's not scary at all near the end. So the game needed to be a little bit better balanced. Like the beginning is fantastic, but the end not as much. Rocket League is a decent game. Just a decent game, a little fun, but nothing special. Silent Hill 2 is an amazing game. It is, I would say, almost a masterpiece. If they ever remake this game with better graphics and a little bit better gameplay, I would put it probably in the masterpiece. But for now, I felt like there was some problems in gameplay that stopped it from being a masterpiece. Now Sims 4, it's a good game. It's a fun little game for people who like that type of stuff. Not really my thing, but yeah. Spider-Man is an amazing game. It's not a masterpiece because of those problems of open world games. Again, the boring sections, the repetitiveness, bad side content. That stops it from being a masterpiece, because otherwise story and gameplay would be masterpiece. But again, those little things, the open world syndrome. Wii Sports is a bad game. I'm sorry, but motion controls were like a really bad dark time for video games, and these type of games were just the epitome of it. Now Deus Ex is a very good game. It's a very good game. It actually deserves more credit at a time than it got. It was a great RPG first person shooter. I would say the new Deus Ex, the same thing. It's a very good game. Fallout 4, I'm going to put it in the decent category. I'm sorry, but it's one of those games that doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be like an old style RPG, or does it want to be a shooter? And it ends up being a hybrid that is boring as hell. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Now another Counter-Strike that is going in the same category as the previous Counter-Strike. Guitar Hero was a good game. Come on, it was a fun time to just play around and pretend you're a rock star with a plastic guitar. Now Hitman are very good games also. Very well done stealth games, even though they are not as good as Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid. They're still really fun stealth games. Nier Automata is amazing. It's just not a masterpiece because it needed less RPG mechanics and more, even more hack and slash mechanics. Like, it is a decent hack and slash game with really fun gameplay, but some little RPG stuff there stops it from being perfect. That's my opinion. Prototype was a decent game. Like, it was completely butchered by Infamous. Infamous was so much better. Pokemon was a very good game, very fun. It was the only one that I played, the original one. I didn't own it. I had a cousin of mine that owned it. I would play in his console. It was definitely a fun time at the time, even though they were such a simplistic games. Now Death Stranding is a good game. Yeah, it's walking simulator. The story is great, but I was disappointed. I hoped more from Kojima. I felt it was just too weird. Now NBA 2K20 I'm going to put in the bad category because of the same problems of FIFA 20. A lot of pay to win mechanics. It's not as bad as FIFA 20, but it's the same bullshit. Spec Ops The Line, it's a really great shooter. Very good or great. Very good or great. Could go either way. I'm going to put in very good. Great ending. It was such a surprise to me because I was not expecting that game to be as good as it was. Dead or Alive 6 is going to the good category. Great fighting mechanics, but a lot of problems with DLCs, useless DLCs, a lot of cut down content in relation to Dead or Alive 5. So Dead or Alive 5 would be higher on this list because it has better content than Dead or Alive 6. Fall Guys is a fun indie game. I'm going to put it in the decent category. The Last of Us Part 2 is going in the decent category. And let me explain, it's one of those controversial picks. I would put it in horrible if it was just my personal taste. Because the story is so bad that it should be horrible. But it does have decent gameplay. It does have amazing graphics, great soundtrack, great voice acting. Pity that great voice acting is wasted in such a terrible script and terrible writing, terrible story. And that for me, it just makes it unbearable. Now, because how people love it, how people hate it, it is a decent game. It's a decent game. It has some people that are fans of it, but the game itself does not deserve to be anywhere higher than decent. It is decent, and that's all I can give it. Now, Persona 4, I don't know if it is Persona 4, the original one, or if they put in here that fighter one. There was, I think it was Arena, Persona 4 Arena. I'm going to rank the Persona 4 Arena game, and I'm going to put it in very good because it's from the same people of Guilty Gear and BlazBlue and Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I would say it's in the level of Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, Call of Duty Warzone, again another decent one. Kakarot, oh, actually I haven't played this one, so out of the list. DuckTales, it's a good game. It's a good game. It's a little fun, nostalgic game. Batman Arkham Knight. Actually, I cannot rank this too because I haven't played it, because I own it, but I haven't played it yet. So I actually should go to it. Now, Yakuza 5 is a hard one to rank. It's either amazing or masterpiece, but because I'm already putting 0 and Kiwami 2 is a masterpiece, I'm going to put 5 as amazing. It is one of the best stories. It is 5 characters, 5 different locations, but it's a lot more confusing than Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 0. The conspiracy is so much deeper, and even though I think they managed to do it well, and for a moment I thought this was going to be the end of the series, but then they decided to go with 6 and make the new sequel. I still think if it was the ending, it would have been a decent ending, a good ending. The game was really well done, so well mechanically. It was the best one by far from the PlayStation 3 era. But yeah, I think amazing it's enough. I think amazing it's enough, while the other ones are masterpieces. This one still has some limitations that the other ones addressed well, but it is an amazing Yakuza game. Ghost of Tsushima, for now, I'm going to put it as amazing, not a masterpiece, because I feel like it has some of those open world game problems, but I'm still very early in the game, so maybe my opinion will change to great or to masterpiece, but for now I'm feeling some of those issues that open world games have. But it's probably the most beautiful game that I've ever played. Bayonetta, it is also an amazing game. It's an amazing game. It's a little bit below Devil May Cry 5, and I would say in the level of Metal Gear Rising in terms of hack and slash games, but still not as good as Devil May Cry 5. Another Call of Duty, another decent one. And then we have Cyberpunk, and here's another controversial one. It goes in the masterpiece category. I'm sorry, maybe my opinion is a little bit clouded because I played it on PC with graphics pushed to max. But here's my issue. This classification can change a little bit. I can imagine why people would put it below it, or a little bit in the amazing or great category, but I expect that after the patches and after the first DLC comes out, I would say that Cyberpunk will get closer to what Witcher 3 was, because I see all of the same quality there, but I see it unfinished. The story amazing, characters really well written. Now the side content is not as strong as Witcher 3, but I still did it all, and I didn't feel like I was bored by doing it. I felt great by doing it. I felt it was one of the open world games that actually felt it was fun to explore the city, and the world, the lore, everything was so well done, but the bugs are stopping it. And unfortunately there are some things in the open world that are still not in the point where they should be. So I'm putting it here on the condition that after the fixes it meets those requirements. But if it doesn't, then I will drop it down to amazing. But for now I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Now Doom Eternal, I'm going to put it next to the other Doom because I feel the same way about those two games. Very good. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm very close to finishing it and I'm putting in the very good category. Now the same problem that I have with Final Fantasy 15, I think the gameplay should be Devil May Cry style gameplay. I think it would improve a lot, even though I feel like the gameplay from Final Fantasy VII Remake is better than Final Fantasy 15. The story is really well done, but even after I finish it, I cannot give it any higher rating because it's unfinished. It's 1/3 of a game, and I'm sorry, but I don't care how much padding they added to the game. It's still 1/3 of a game. Maybe when there's like a collection edition with all three parts together in just one game, I can rank it higher, but for now I think that's dishonest practice from Square Enix and I don't support it. People would tell me, oh, but you're going to buy the game anyway. Actually I didn't. I got it free from PlayStation Plus because I refused to buy this game because it was 1/3 of a game and not a full game, and it was priced as a full game. So I'm sorry, I cannot rank a game that is not finished higher than this. It was a remake of a game that was just one game, and this is just 1/3 of that game. Hitman 2 goes in the same place that I put Hitman 1. Where is it? Hitman 1, Hitman 1. It's in the very good category. And then we have Avengers. Avengers is going in the bad category. It's a bad game. I'm sorry. It's a bad game. And I saw it by the trailer. I looked at it. This looks bad. This just looks bad. And I was not wrong. It's a bad game. I'm sorry. It's just a bad game. Now Yakuza Like a Dragon goes in the decent category. The reason it's going in the decent category is because even though it has a Yakuza-like story, it has the same level of amazing open world and great mini games. They replaced the beat 'em up gameplay that we all loved by turn-based combat, and that's a betrayal first of the fans of the series, and a downgrade, a huge downgrade, because you had some of the best beat 'em up gameplay in the world, and then you replace it by turn-based gameplay that used to be popular in a time when you could not do almost any better gameplay than turn-based. Now we evolved past turn-based. Not even Final Fantasy, there was the gold standard of turn-based combat, still does turn-based combat, because turn-based combat is not really that good. And going that route for me, just decent. I can only give it decent. But that's my list, of course, it's my list. I may put the link to this tier maker in the description of the video, so you guys can do your own list based on this. But yeah, that's my list. Tell me in the comment section, especially in the controversial picks, which ones you agree with, that a lot of people probably would rank higher or lower, and you guys would rank like I did. Tell me in the comment section below, because I would love to know which controversial opinion you agree with, and of course which controversial opinion you don't agree with. But remember, these are just my opinions, so don't get mad. This is just fun. It's just fun. Don't get mad at fun. Don't be a fanboy of anything, because we're just here to have fun. If you liked it, leave a like in the description, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys next time.
Do it! Just do it!